Even though the rest of humanity views them as divine angels, the Space Marines are still a human military force and thus need a chain of command. That said, not every chapter organizes itself the same way. Different chapters use different titles, symbols, and traditions to mark authority. So in this video, we'll be focusing on the most widely accepted and commonly recognized Space Marine ranks and terms for those ranks. Beyond the normal rank structure, we'll also touch on some specialized roles like Apothecaries and Librarians. These positions don't fit neatly into the traditional hierarchy, but they are far too important to ignore. All Astartes start as an aspirant, a hopeful candidate drawn from a chapter's recruitment world or worlds. Aspirants are technically not yet warriors of the Adeptus Astartes. They're the raw material, the diamonds in the rough, tested to see whether they're even worth the chapter's time. Selection trials vary wildly. Most chapters demand some form of feats of endurance or combat, while others require spiritual purity or adaptability. One specific example is the exposure trial, commonly used by the Ultramarines and Space Wolves. The exposure trial sends an aspirant on his own to an unforgiving wilderness, often in some death world, with only the most basic supplies, and he must survive for a set amount of time. Some chapters will have more trials than others, but once selected, aspirants undergo the earlier stages of implantation to give them the 19 additional organs of the Astartes. Their bodies are reshaped through surgery, alchemical treatments, and psycho-conditioning to prepare them for the full suite of new organs. This process is long, brutal, and frequently lethal. Failure is almost an expected outcome, as many humans simply aren't even compatible with the new organs. But that's the cost of excellence. Chapters would rather lose 100 aspirants than accept one flawed Astartes. During this phase, aspirants are trained relentlessly. They learn discipline, obedience, and are taught the chapter's history and doctrines. Individual identity is stripped away and replaced with absolute loyalty, all meant to slowly forge them into the brutal weapons of the Emperor. Think less recruit training and more Hunger Games but with church. Aspirants are the bridge between humanity and demigodhood. If they survive long enough, have a lot of skill and a lot of luck, they may advance. If they don't, well, the Imperium has never been short on young men willing to try. Neophytes are aspirants who've already passed their trials and are technically now inducted into the chapter, but have yet to survive further organ implantation to fully transform them into a Space Marine. Neophytes have also earned the right to fight, though fight might be a generous term at first. They now possess many of the physical advantages of a Space Marine, but lack the experience, confidence, and full suite of implants of a veteran Astartes. And so, Neophytes are often assigned to scout companies, where they continue their training under real battlefield conditions, albeit to a lesser degree than a full-on battle brother, of course. Unless they're in the Space Wolves chapter, in which case they're immediately sent to the front lines as blood claws to vent out their youthful enthusiasm, which I guess is sort of like giving an angsty teenager several walls to punch. Neophytes answer to full battle brothers, learn their unit tactics, observe them in combat firsthand, and are expected to follow orders without hesitation. Their war gear reflects their transitional status: lighter armor, simpler weapons, and a heavy emphasis on reconnaissance and marksmanship. They often look like a weird cross between an Imperial Guard and an Astartes. Neophytes also serve as a proving ground for temperament. Courage is good, recklessness is not. A neophyte who rushes a Chaos Marine head-on isn't necessarily brave, just stupid, and is also about to become a cautionary tale. Veterans watch closely, correcting mistakes and occasionally delivering lessons that are equal parts instruction and intimidation. While still not considered full battle brothers, neophytes are no longer disposable trainees. They represent an investment, one the chapter intends to see pay off. Survive the last bits of surgery, learn lessons fast enough, and prove loyal enough, and a neophyte will eventually be elevated. At that point, he joins the ranks of the Adeptus Astartes proper and can finally start killing the Emperor's enemies en masse. Hoorah! Though technically not a named rank, a Battle Brother is basically the baseline Space Marine, making up the bulk of any given chapter. These are fully initiated warriors who have survived recruitment, implantation, and years of brutal combat training. They wear full power armor, carry the chapter's sacred war gear, and fight as part of squads within tactical, assault, devastator, or other specialized formations, depending on chapter doctrine. Battle Brothers operate within a clear chain of command, answering to their squad sergeant and ultimately to the company's lieutenants and captain. They are expected to act with discipline and initiative in equal measure, following orders precisely, but also adapting instantly when plans fall apart, which they often do. The Codex Astartes provides the structure and battlefield behavior for loyal Astartes, but even those who follow it closely allow Battle Brothers a decent amount of battlefield autonomy. A Space Marine who can't adapt to the ever-changing tides of war is a dead Marine. The range of experience between Battle Brothers is pretty wide. Some Battle Brothers are fresh from their scout companies, while others have centuries of warfare behind them. Senior Battle Brothers often serve as informal leaders within squads, mentoring young Marines and acting as the sergeant's right-hand man. They may also be entrusted with specialist roles, heavy weapons, squad command in the sergeant's absence, or the honor of carrying sacred relics. None of this comes with a formal rank increase, just more responsibility and fewer excuses. Despite their fearsome reputation, Battle Brothers are not mindless killing machines. They are scholars of war, versed in strategy, history, and the traditions of their chapter. Between campaigns, they train, study, and maintain their war gear with near religious devotion. Yes, this means a Space Marine might spend hours polishing a bolter that has survived orbital bombardment. Many of them are even masters of hobbies that aren't war-related. For example, Space Marines of the Blood Angels chapter are well known for their passion for poetry and the arts. In short, Battle Brothers aren't just the backbone of the Imperium of man's military might. They're individuals with their own lives, interests, and ideals. Before getting into sergeants, you should know that from here on, only veteran Astartes get to ascend to these ranks most of the time. There are exemptions, though, like when an Astartes exhibits exceptional talent somewhat early on, or when one gets promoted mid-battle when all other senior officers have fallen or are unavailable. As the name implies, veteran Marines are the warriors who have proven themselves across numerous front lines. They've become masters of every form of war and are set as shining examples of what Space Marines should hope to become. It depends on the chapter, but veteran Astartes are often distinguished by their white helmets, marks, or other pieces of armor. However, veterans aren't really an official rank higher than the rest of their Battle Brothers, so they don't have a lot of additional authoritative power, other than the respect they gain from their brethren, and the chance to be selected to wear one of the chapter's venerated Terminator armors. Okay, so moving on to sergeants. They are veteran Battle Brothers who have proven themselves capable of leadership under fire. Elevated from the ranks, they command individual squads of 10 and serve as a primary link between their Marines and the chapter's higher officers. A sergeant's authority is absolute within his squad, and his responsibilities are immense. Tactics, discipline, morale, and mission success all rest squarely on his shoulders. Unlike more senior officers, sergeants lead from the front. They fight alongside their warriors, issuing orders in the middle of firefights and personally correcting mistakes, sometimes verbally, sometimes by example. Additionally, a senior sergeant can be in charge of multiple squads at once when the captain deems it necessary for a larger force to act as one for a specific mission. Their war gear often reflects their status, with distinctive helmets, markings, or veteran weapons that make them easy to identify. For example, sergeants of the Ultramarines paint their helmets red, and when a sergeant proves himself again and again in the theater of war, they can become a veteran sergeant, gaining additional markings and even more respect. They'll be even more likely to be trained to use Terminator armor than regular veterans, and different squads might even borrow them for especially grueling skirmishes that require their centuries-long experience. While they technically outrank their squad mates, sergeants are not distant commanders. They are first among equals, respected not because of some title, but because they've earned it, repeatedly, on battlefields littered with enemies and fallen brothers alike. If a squad is made up of 10 Space Marines, a company is made up of 10 squads, and each company is usually assigned 2 lieutenants to be the left and right-hand men of their captain. Lieutenants occupy an interesting middle ground in a Space Marine chapter's hierarchy. They may oversee multiple squads, lead strike forces, or act as the captain's representative during dispersed operations. When the battle plan involves several moving parts, a lieutenant is usually the one making sure they don't collide in spectacular and embarrassing fashion. Most lieutenants are veterans drawn from the ranks of sergeants who have demonstrated tactical insight and the ability to think beyond their own squad. Their role demands flexibility. One moment issuing strategic orders, the next fighting on the front line if the situation demands it. While they hold real authority, lieutenants are also expected to defer instantly to their captain's will. Independence is encouraged as long as it doesn't contradict direct orders. Because chapters vary widely in how they employ lieutenants, their prominence and roles can differ dramatically. Some chapters rely on them heavily as battlefield coordinators, while others use them sparingly or fold their duties into other officer roles. For example, the Iron Hands chapter equivalent of lieutenant is called a naismith. They have the unique role of questioning their captain's plans, trying to find flaws and holes in their strategies to make sure it's as airtight as possible. Whatever their role, when a lieutenant is present, their authority is unquestioned. They speak with the captain's voice, and their brothers obey. Lieutenants can also serve as mentors to sergeants and promising battle brothers. They evaluate performance, recommend promotions, and quietly decide who is ready for greater responsibility and who needs another few decades to think about it. It's a demanding role, part commander, part instructor, part crisis manager. The reward is prestige, influence, and the constant awareness that one day the captain's mantle may fall on their shoulders. No pressure, of course. The Emperor protects. As you've probably deducted, captains are the individual leaders of Space Marine companies, each commanding roughly 100 battle brothers, along with their officers, specialist, and support personnel. A captain is not merely a battlefield commander, but a strategic authority, responsible for deploying his company in accordance with the chapter master's will. When a captain goes to war, he does so as the embodiment of his chapter's doctrine and honor. Within their company, a captain's word is law. They determine tactics, assign squads, and decide how aggressively to pursue objectives. Most captains lead from the front, fighting alongside their warriors in the thickest battles. This is partly tradition and partly practicality. Few things inspire Space Marines like watching their commander charge a fortress with a power sword. Few things terrify the enemy more. As previously mentioned, captains are almost always veterans of centuries of warfare. Many have served as sergeants and lieutenants for decades or longer, earning their position through relentless competence rather than political maneuvering. Their war gear is often ancient and revered, passed down through generations of company commanders and steeped in legend. Losing a captain is a serious blow to a chapter, not just tactically, it's also massively demoralizing. Beyond combat, captains also act as administrators, diplomats, and judges within their companies. They enforce discipline, resolve disputes, and maintain the traditions that define their chapter. In short, captains are the pillars upon which a chapter's military strength rests, warriors, leaders, and living symbols of the Adeptus Astartes at war. The title of Master is one of the more unconventional and specialized positions within a Space Marine chapter. Unlike ranks that follow a clear ladder of promotion, Master is a designation usually granted to captains and chapter masters who are entrusted with authority over a specific domain of the chapter's operations. In other words, most masters are captains, but it's more like a title that tells you what that Space Marine specializes in, rather than a straight-up promotion. Another thing that sets the Master rank apart is that there are so many variations of the Master title. They oversee critical aspects of a chapter's structure, so a chapter can have a Master of the Forge, Master of Sanctity, or Master of the Fleet. Each role carries immense responsibility and the expectation to be the chapter's top expert in their area of mastery. A master must think at the chapter-wide level, balancing logistics, doctrine, training, or spiritual purity across 1,000 Space Marines. An example of a master is the Master of the Forge, the chapter's most experienced tech marine, expected to understand the maintenance and sanctity of the chapter's war machines better than anyone else. The Master of Sanctity is the chapter's highest-ranking chaplain and oversees the spiritual health of the chapter, ensuring morale and faith remain unbreakable. Take note though, but because of the difference in each chapter's fighting style, they can have master titles that are exclusive to them. And a chapter might also not use a master title that's fairly common in all other chapters. For example, the Raven Guard chapter has a unique master called the Master of Shadows, known for his extreme proficiency in stealth and infiltration. This title currently belongs to Kayvan Shrike, a former captain of the Raven Guard's 3rd Company and the current chapter master. Despite their highly specialized responsibilities, masters are still warriors first. They fight when needed, lead when required, and often possess centuries of battlefield experience. Their authority is not to be questioned, and if a master gives an order within his domain, even other captains listen carefully. Think of the rank as horizontal expansion rather than vertical promotion. Masters don't sit above captains, so much as beside them, just with an entire department of the chapter resting squarely on their armored shoulders. A Codex-compliant chapter contains 10 companies. That's 1,000 Astartes, and leading all of them is the chapter master. This individual is the ultimate authority over every battle brother, officer, and asset the chapter possesses. They don't just command men, they command destiny, deciding when and where the chapter goes to war and for what purpose. The chapter master answers to no one within the chapter itself. His word is absolute law, shaping strategy, doctrine, and tradition. Oftentimes, that authority even extends beyond the chapter, as the chapter master can also be the ruler of the world his chapter recruits from. He might even be the ruler of multiple worlds. The chapter master determines how closely, or loosely, the chapter adheres to the Codex Astartes, at the risk of catching the attention of the Inquisition's prying eyes, of course. Some chapter masters rule with rigid discipline, others with pragmatic flexibility. All that matters is that they fulfill their duty to the Imperium. Reaching this position usually requires centuries of service and an unparalleled record of victory and leadership. Many chapter masters are legendary figures, their names etched into Imperial history and whispered in hushed tones by the foes of men. Their war gear is often ancient beyond measure, filled with relics tied to the chapter's founding or greatest triumphs. For example, Marnius Calgar, the current Ultramarines chapter master, wields a pair of weapons that are arguably more popular than he is: the Gauntlets of Ultramar, legendary power fists won by Rabute Guilliman himself after defeating a champion of chaos. Beyond warfare, the chapter master also serves as diplomat and judge. He negotiates with imperial authorities, coordinates with other chapters, and resolves internal disputes that could fracture their unity. His decisions can determine whether a chapter thrives, declines, or is wiped from history entirely. In Warhammer 40,000, where extinction is a constant threat, chapter masters carry immense responsibilities. A single warrior entrusted with the fate of countless others and expected to face the worst the galaxy has to offer without hesitation or regret. We are done with the normal ranking system within Space Marine chapters. However, there are a few Space Marine roles that are unique in that they're important but don't really fit into the standard chain of command. These roles operate outside the usual promotional progression from Battle Brother to Sergeant to Lieutenant and beyond. These are your Apothecaries, Tech Marines, and Chaplains, to name a few. They hold authority, but that authority comes from specialization and sacred duty rather than traditional rank. If we were forced to say how high they rank, you can sort of place them similarly to a sergeant's level, but that can fluctuate wildly from chapter to chapter, or when a situation calls for their specific set of skills, or a number of other factors. In this segment, we'll take a quick look at these specialists. Usually denoted by their red armor, Tech Marines occupy a unique position within a Space Marine chapter, split in loyalty and training between their chapter and the Adeptus Mechanicus. Each chapter sends a certain number of its more technologically gifted members to Mars, where they're trained in the ways of the Mechanicus. Upon their return to the chapter, they are responsible for the maintenance, repair, and appeasement of the machine spirits in the chapter's war gear, from bolt guns and power armor to tanks, dreadnoughts, and starships. When a Tech Marine speaks on matters of machinery, even captains listen. No one argues with the guy who can fix and sabotage everyone's stuff. Marching and preaching into battle with their awesome and terrifying skull helms. Chaplains are the spiritual and moral backbone of a Space Marine chapter. They're tasked with maintaining faith, discipline, and adherence to the chapter's traditions. basically a cross between priests and battlefield enforcers. Now, contrary to the rest of the Imperium, most Space Marine chapters don't actually worship the Emperor as a god, since they're more knowledgeable about history than your common human. Plus, they have dreadnoughts who've been alive since the Emperor's time and know the Emperor didn't want anyone to worship him. But chaplains exist even within the chapters that don't worship the Emperor, serving as their main morale booster, even in the midst of battle. They inspire their brothers with sermons, battle cries, and the occasional reminder of what happens to those who lose their way. In Warhammer 40,000, where belief can be as powerful as any weapon, chaplains make sure that belief never wavers. Apothecaries are responsible for the continual biological growth and survival of a Space Marine chapter. They recover the gene seed of fallen brothers, oversee implantation surgeries, and monitor the genetic purity of the chapter. On the battlefield, they also serve as combat medics, able to perform complex life-saving surgeries while under enemy fire. Apothecaries are immediately recognizable by their white power armor, the red Apothecarian markings, and the Narthecium gauntlet mounted on their arm. If an apothecary is running toward you mid-battle, it's either very good news or very, very bad news. Librarians are Space Marines gifted with psychic abilities, trained to wield the warp without being consumed by it. They act as battlefield psychers, scholars, and keepers of forbidden knowledge, combining devastating psychic power with tactical insight. Librarians are required by the Codex Astartes to wear blue power armor. Higher-ranking librarians also prefer to wear psychic hoods and wield ornate force weapons that can only be properly used by psychers and grow and wane in power depending on the psychic strength of the user. To other psychers, their presence is unmistakable, often heralded by a crackling energy and unsettling whispers from seemingly everywhere and nowhere at once. Trusted and feared in equal measure, librarians walk a dangerous line, protecting their brothers from the warp while staring directly into it. From lowly aspirants to the commanding presence of a chapter master, the Space Marine hierarchy is somehow both structured and surprisingly flexible. It kind of needs to be with all the different chapters and their different beliefs and combat doctrines. That said, each rank exists for a reason, shaped by 10,000 years of war, tradition, and hard-earned experience. Together, these roles form a fighting force that's far above elite soldiers. As the Emperor himself said, they are the defenders of humanity. They are his Space Marines, and they shall know no fear. If there's another niche role or rank you want discussed, or if you're looking for more information on the mentioned ranks, be sure to leave a comment. While this video covers the most widely accepted ranks, it only scratches the surface of how different chapters interpret, adapt, and sometimes completely ignore the rules when at war.